Peace and blessings, family. Sister Ajali, when it comes to these devils, we have to pay attention to what they're doing, which is what we weren't doing when they developed nuclear energy, starting all the way back with Madame Curie and her radium that radium wound up killing her and her husband, and the house that they lived in is still off limits to the public because it's so radioactive. Now, all of that said, that word con is very, very interesting because it doesn't mean a direct assault. Con is the word for with. And so you have things like the Constitution or just a common con game, which relies on the victims or the patsies' ignorance, so that the patsy thinks that, oh, I'm in here with you, I'm doing this with you, and they don't realize that they're the brunt of the scam. And so when it comes to fusion energy, it's so convenient that it winds up being the word confusion, okay? Because that's exactly what it is, where they're bringing us in to a whole new scam based on the public's overwhelming ignorance. So I humbly ask you to watch the whole share all the way through, and share it with your friends and your family, because I'm about to break it down, so we have a chance of being educated to the new lie of fusion. Now, here you see one of the headlines. They've been putting fusion. Oh, we figured out fusion articles all over the place. You think that they had come up with a new method of lying to everyone, that they had landed on the moon, which for some reason they don't seem to have the technology today compared to the 60s and 70s to redo the journey, even though how many minerals are up on the moon. And so when I was looking at all these headlines, historic breakthrough in nuclear fusion, I was like, what? Okay. Because I know the devil's gonna lie. Part of his whole business plan includes lies. It's just part of their business model. Insert lie here. With the business schools, they teach this whole Horatio Alger pure, science of doing business, but in reality, I think the people who recognize the real fulcrum of all of it are the ones who get promoted the fastest, and that's disgusting because they're killing everybody. Like the lie they told about nuclear waste, that one day they're going to figure out what to do with it, and there's not a damn thing you can do with it because it's radiation times just impossible to do anything with because it's so unstable, it's so hot. But I just know that there's some phoniness going on behind the scenes once you scratch the surface of the con. And so, historic breakthrough in nuclear fusion. Scientists achieve, look at the language, holy grail by replicating power of the sun, potentially spelling the end of fossil fuels. No. From what I understand, fossil fuels are determined to run out. Now, right now, they're doing their best to get entree into areas where there is a large supply of fossil fuels still available. And also just, whether or not they're actually from dinosaurs is a whole nother part of the scandalous scamming of these folks that I haven't fully investigated. But the fossil thing, there's no peak oil happening right now, okay? But supposedly it will end. So that's, I don't know if that's one of those excuses they use to fund or, increase the, like they'll have, oh, the winter weather's going to be horrible, because then they know you're going to go to the store and get weather preparedness gear. And also, the whole apocalypse and, prepper thing is wonderful. It's, that you got to do. But at the same time, you got to be flexible, because we don't know exactly what these devils have planned. In the meantime, everyone runs out to get stores of, freeze-dried food, when you'd be better off simply learning how to grow your own food and forage in the wild for your necessary nutrients. So with this, they don't have fusion online. There's no fusion plant out there. This is propaganda so that these folks can get an investment. And one of the things that I learned in doing the research about fusion is that they're still being built by all those fossil fuels that they say they're a replacement for. Okay, not that there's a plant out there. They're just looking for funding. But at the same time, the trucks are not going to be, fed by fusion energy. Very little of population power in cities and rural districts is even fueled by nuclear. Nuclear is mostly just to create these very profitable transuranic isotopes that they use in weapons and in the medical industry, and to create some of the products necessary to complete a fusion reaction. But more about that coming up. Going back to this headline, because I don't want to skip this one. Nuclear fusion could power homes. They always say that. It's going to power your home. By 2030, Vancouver company announces method to compress plasma to create clean energy technology. They put all this stuff out so it's the con. You think that you are part of all of this, okay? To create clean energy technology a day after California scientists announced breakthrough with lasers. Okay, the lasers are powered by nuclear, okay? All of these transuranic isotopes that they create, there's not a one of them, not an atom of them that is not dangerous to organic matter. I even just found out that the CAT scans, the CT scans, will give you like 19 sieverts of, cumulatively. Like if you have 1, 2 CAT scans or CTs, you're in a lot of trouble, because they can cause cancer, because the isotopes that they put into your bloodstream in order to measure different parts of your body they have to put off energy. And so 1 microsievert is enough to cause a cancer somewhere down the line. 3 microsieverts is just going to kill you right on the spot. And so these things they're not overall good for you in terms of, just eating healthy. And in order nowadays to eat healthy, support my work, because I'm going to get that spectrogram to test our food. If Japanese housewives can do it, and I can write books, and I realize I've always been, I used to weld. I used to use a MIG torch, and I loved it. So there's certain things that once they're fascinating to me, I'm going to study that technology. So if those Japanese housewives can be up there just, testing all their food, and the FDA is allowing in all Fukushima produce, and we know that means the fish too, don't we need our food tested? Okay? And so let's keep it going so we can understand what's plasma. Because that was the issue when it comes to the feasibility of fusion as opposed to fission, is it requires massive amounts of heat to create this plasma so that they can actually, fusion is where they will take a deuterium molecule or a deuterium atom, and they will fuse it. They would initially, the perfect situation would be if they could take another deuterium atom and fuse them together, which that would create energy similar to the sun, but sun doesn't use deuterium. It uses hydrogen, but it would create an offshoot of one neutron and an awful lot of energy, but that can only happen in plasma. Plasma is, I'll read this here, plasma is superheated matter, so hot that the electrons are ripped away from the atoms, forming an ionized gas. This comprises over 99% of the visible universe. In the night sky, plasma glows in the form of stars, nebulas, and even the auroras that sometimes ripple above the north and south poles. Plasma, the issue that they've had with it is it's like 1.8 billion degrees Fahrenheit, when in order for them to get the deuterium to attach to another deuterium atom. However, if they use lithium, which they employ fission to then isolate tritium, which is radioactive hot water. And I've shown this paper before, the hazards of tritium. And a white gentleman came through and he was wonderfully polite. I ain't mad at you if you're going to tell the truth, and he is an anti-nuker. So respect to that person who came in and informed me that. And it made me think, because they didn't inform me of this, but you know, how dangerous tritium is. And it made me ponder the same way they lied about naturally occurring potassium, which is in, I've got bananas over here somewhere. You can't see them behind my umbrella. But anyway, that's in a banana, which is a low emitting radioactive frequency that our bodies have been formed to recognize and thereby stabilize the amount. Any extra and we just off-gas it. It just literally will just evaporate out through our pores and in our waste material. But tritium, that's not what happens. And so it occurred to me when they say, oh, but tritium is naturally occurring. It's very, very rare in the environment naturally. Yet, when they fission all of these uranic and transuranic isotopes, it creates hundreds of billions of tons of tritium. It is the largest byproduct of nuclear fission that there is. And I'm thinking it's probably a whole nother level of radioactivity as opposed to naturally occurring tritium, because you got them with the fissioning. It's the Enrico Fermi just experiment where you have a perpetual reaction that they have to use massive quantities of fresh water, can't use salt water, to cool these nuclear fissioning plants down. Otherwise they would all explode. So that's what's creating the tritium, is all that water that's being passed over these nuclear rods, which contain tons and tons of radioactive material. That they have to stay at a certain temperature, or you get a Chernobyl or Fukushima or a Chelyabinsk. Okay, and Savannah River also. There's all kinds of meltdowns that have happened that if they're military, they don't have to tell anybody about it. And so they only can acquire sufficient quantities of tritium to employ or even get to the point of fusion if they're using nuclear fission to start with. And one of my favorite things about this particular article was this explanation, a misunderstood nuclide. Tritium is also the most studied radionuclide. Since the 1950s, several hundreds, perhaps thousands of scientific articles have examined its biological effectiveness, that is, its hazard, and other properties. Yet it remains a misunderstood nuclide, as some radiation protection scientists still consider it a weak nuclide, incorrectly thinking that as its beta particle has low energy, and it's considered a pure beta emitter, which means it has no gamma radiation coming from it. I'm going to explain a little bit about alpha, beta, and gamma. Matter of fact, let me just do that right now. Alpha can't get through a piece of paper. A beta can get through the paper, but it can't get through a fairly, not too thick piece of wood or other material. Gamma can get through all of that except for a 20 feet thick piece of lead. And here is a measure of the hazards of energy, starting with just, common electrical power through the lines. And then you see, and this is all in the category of non-ionizing. What non-ionizing means is it will not rip apart your DNA. However, Wi-Fi and things like that enter the danger zone because they jostle the DNA. And I always try to explain this. If you got somebody poking you on the shoulder forever, you're going to deck them after a while because you are irritated as heck. Same thing with your DNA. Your cells have a will to live. They have a desire to survive, and thereby that's why they go cancerous, because they're like, look, we ain't getting what we need, and then they become carnivorous on your body. Right? Now we have notice suddenly they're calling it safe and beneficial in appropriate doses. This is what they always do. But you have the infrared, the visible, and ultraviolet. Those are also, if they're beyond EMF waves, they're hazardous. Then we get to man-made radiation, which is why I say all the other poisons, all the other frequencies are not good, but they are absolutely no comparison. Where here you have extremely harmful, and they have X-rays, because radiation also puts out X-rays. And then all the way up to gamma rays. And here you see the frequency, the megahertz wavelength of each and every single one of these items. And gamma rays is all the way at the extreme end. Now here's a problem with man-made radiation. It's not just waves, it's particles that put out these waves. When you eat it or when you breathe it, you think having something like that in your body, putting out megahertz of that level, gonna do inside? And unless you know how to get it out, you ain't getting it out, because your body is not going to recognize these unnatural to planet Earth particles. It recognizes the potassium in bananas, but it's not going to recognize plutonium, strontium, which is called the bone seeker. A lot of reason all leukemias are coming up, okay? So returning, yet it remains a misunderstood nuclide. That is, as its beta particle has low energy, therefore its exposures are of little consequence. This is what they tell everybody when we just got tritium in those tanks. Which they don't. Its exposures are of little consequence, and tritium outside the body is harmless. Ain't that interesting? Outside the body. But let's keep on reading. These are major misconceptions. In radiobiology, so-called weak particles, in fact, have higher radiobiological effectiveness than more powerful emitters. Paradoxically, the lower their energy, the more effective they become. For example, beta particles from tritium are actually 2 or 3 times more damaging than X-rays. And this is explained later. I'm not going to read all of that, all right? But therefore, to describe beta particles from tritium as weak is misleading. It is better to term them low range. You sitting on a low range, cooktop, you ain't gonna be too happy once that temperature goes up above what is sustainable. The reason for greater effectiveness of low range particles has to do with the track structure of ionizing radiations. So-called strong radiations, such as gamma rays from cobalt-60, have very long tracks in tissue, but most of their energy is frittered away in small amounts over their low tracks, emitting all those megahertz of energy. At the same time, it's propelled that far out because it just puts it out at very far-ranging lengths, and thereby by the time it reaches the end of its journey, it's only emitted but so much energy. But most of their energy is frittered away in small amounts. Damaging amounts of energy are deposited only at the ends of tracks. Low-range beta emitters, such as tritium, effectively consist only of such track ends and therefore are more damaging per disintegration than higher energy emitters. This is something that we don't have to be conned anymore once we have the understanding. So I thank this author of this article for very well explaining the dynamics of nuclear fusion, not fission. And reading what he stated, it just proves that it's not efficient energy at all, because in order to power it, it takes billions, tens of billions of dollars to create these situations where you'll have temperatures of nearly 2 billion degrees Fahrenheit. That's crazy. Or it might be 2 million, okay? Don't let me get that wrong, okay? But 2 million, still, you think you want to walk anywhere where it's 2 million degrees? Yeah, they say in practice, past attempts to obtain controlled nuclear fusion as a source of energy has hinged on the possibility of fusing a heavier isotope of hydrogen, deuterium. But not even the controlled deuterium to deuterium reaction is considered feasible because it's so daggone hot, okay? And the current effort focuses on the reaction of a still heavier hydrogen isotope, tritium, with deuterium. Tritium is not a mineral resource as it's so unstable. It has a half-life of 12 years. That means it has a full life of 120 years, okay? Let's just get it straight. But it can be created by bombarding a lithium isotope. Here, they posted a diagram of the fusion reaction. This gas right around here, that's the plasma. That otherwise, this would never, ever happen. And the problem is they couldn't contain the plasma in one area. I mean, come on, if you got something that's millions of degrees Fahrenheit, what you gonna contain it in? And so they're saying that they've developed a method to contain the plasma, but they've only done that on a small scale. So I would imagine that they've done something where they could cool it down real quick, and it was in such a tiny area that it was of no consequence, and they're using this to fool not just you and me, but they're using it to fool all of, this rich people are a heck of a lot stupider than we give them credit for. You know how when you think about athletes, and you know that they don't have to be ignorant, but they tend to be because they will fixate on their sport of interest. And they will ignore every other thing because it gives, athletics gives you such an incredible high. It really does. I've never been that caliber of athlete, but I know just from my runs. And so a lot of rich people, just like anybody who's just like a one-hit wonder in whatever it is they're acing, a lot of rich people are not going to delve any deeper than, is it feasible? Okay, this is what the news articles say. This is what I'm going to go by. And that they're looking for them to be patsies for the con of fusion. So, here, oh, there we go. It is 1 billion. 1.8 billion degrees Fahrenheit and 270 million for the tritium with deuterium. So what they're proposing is to have fusion facilities, whole giant plants that are running a constant plasma state at 270 million degrees Fahrenheit. And they're putting out in the media that they figured out a way to contain it. Can we figure out a way to contain their lunacy? I don't think so either. Whew. Sounds like another cryptocurrency scam, just a new Ponzi scheme for these guys. They're always working the scam. Wow, I think I've explained this enough, so this doesn't have to be longer than 30 minutes. And with editing, it'll be even shorter. That's a wonderful thing. But before I finish, go buy all my books. I'm working on the soap. That's why I've had to slow down the amount that I'm up here. But it also winds up slowing down the amount of research that I can do. And I love this research. However, like everybody else, I have to earn a living. So the soap will be available soon. I have to send out like 63 of my just gift bars to all the people who you bought the soap before. So that's a lot because I can only do batches of 30 all at once. And then I cut it. It's going to be half the usual size. So I only have but so much equipment in my house because I'm working class sister. I don't mind that, but it means everything goes real slow. Everything goes real slow. But surely that will be available very soon. I don't want to say when, because when I say when, then I forget about the fact that, oh, I only have these many soap loaf molds and I can only make this much soap with what I have, and then I can cut every piece of soap. Eventually I'll be able to get one of those, ones that cuts the whole loaf all at once, but because I can't just go out and spend money I don't have, I have to go slowly. So if you want to not have to listen to me ever explain that again, donate through my Cash App, $, the Radical Sister, or not the Radical Sister, just Radical Sister. You can also donate through Patreon. I am always so appreciative of you who continue to donate. Many have stopped, but it doesn't mean that what I'm trying to study has stopped. We need somebody as crazy as me, okay? So donate at Patreon or buy the books on 25,000yearcycle.net, where you'll find all my work, which is magnificent. It's excellent, excellent work. You'll find it at a wonderfully discounted rate. You'll find the cures, because they're cures for man-made radiation. That's why they hide it so much. Otherwise, they would just be out there saying, oh, we've destroyed everything. There's no hope. There's nothing but hope, even when it comes to the radioactive tritium, okay? Yeah, you can get all of that and save our people and our planet. That's a beautiful thing. It's hard for me to say that, but it is what it is, okay? Mwah. Straight black family pride, and we are forever. Peace and blessings, family. I love you.